Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another Hytale video. In today's video, we're going to highlight a few tips and tricks that I was unaware of when it comes to the Salvager's Workbench, the Builder's Workbench, as well as the Furnace. Now, some of these tips I've just stumbled across while playing the game, and some of these definitely surprised me a little bit. Others, not so much because it's a very similar feature to the game that we all know and love, where you guys mine and craft certain blocks. But hey, besides that, if you guys find any sort of this information helpful and useful and you start using some of these tips inside of your game, let me know in the comment section down below which tip are you guys now using inside of your game since watching this video. And if you're feeling so kind, maybe sharing with a friend, liking, subscribing, and once again commenting. All of that stuff really goes a long way, and I love hearing from you guys in the community. Anyways, now that that's all out of the way, let's get straight into the video. So the very first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is going to be features with the furnace. Now, we're going to start off very simple, so let's just grab some wood and some charcoal. You guys are going to be popping in wood probably for fuel at the very start, and as you notice, as an output, you're going to be getting some charcoal. However, you can also use charcoal as a fuel source instead of the furnace. This is something that I didn't really learn until probably about my second day playing the game. I don't know why I didn't know about this, and I didn't think about it, but maybe you guys are in the same boat that I am right now, and you guys just didn't really think anything of the charcoal as an output being used as another source of fuel. So in all, just make sure you guys are recycling the charcoal that you get from wood as another fuel source so that you're saving trips going and cutting down more trees. Our next little tips have to do with these blocks inside of here. So let's grab a few of these. Something I didn't really know is if you stick gold bars inside of the furnace and you turn them on, they're going to turn into golden brick blocks. Now, this is a feature that I was very well unaware of, and it really surprised me. Now, all the other ingots to the right over here, none of them you can smelt down into their respective blocks. So as of right now, there is no copper blocks, iron blocks, thorium blocks, or cobalt blocks. There's also not any silver blocks as well, so it's not going to work if you're going to be trying to use this as an input. In addition to this, if you have any sort of items inside your inventory like so, and you hover over any of the spaces inside the input, you can see what blocks are able to be put inside of the input and what blocks are not able to. So as we can see right now, the gold brick block cannot go back inside of the input slot because it's grayed out. However, if we put snow inside of here, then we're going to be melting the snow down. And this is a feature that really surprised me because, well, if we just use common basic knowledge, melting down snow, you would think it gives us some sort of water, but in this case, it gives us snow brick blocks. So this surprised me a lot, and we're going to go ahead and move on to our next little item. The next one is a very similar feature that is used inside of that one game that we all know and love that I won't name here. But if you put sand inside of the furnace, instead of getting glass blocks, we're going to be getting the empty potion bottles. So this is a good way for you all to stock up on empty potion bottles if you're trying to get into the alchemy. Now, in terms of the alchemy workbench, I will be going over a full guide sometime in the future. So make sure, once again, stay up to date, subscribe, notification bell, and I'll see you guys over there as well. Now, this last little tip for the furnace is going to coincide with the builder's workbench as well. And I want to make sure that you're not making this mistake. So if we have a fuel source and then we go ahead and we pop in any sort of marble cobble or any sort of cobbled blocks, if we turn this on, then we're going to go ahead and spit out the raw version, or the version that you mined, the non-cobbled version essentially of the block that you mined up. And I want to show you a trick that you can do to get these blocks without having to smelt it down, aka not having to use a fuel source or even cutting down the blocks that you have in half. Because if you notice, the cobbled marble that I had 100 when I put it in the input, and now I'm only getting 50 as the output. So if we head over into the builder's workbench, we can actually take quartzite cobble, stick it inside of the builder's workbench, and go ahead and select the tab that's just above it. This is how you can get a 1-to-1 ratio of the original block itself versus the cobbled version of that block. So I just want to make sure that you guys are not cutting the amount of blocks that you actually have down in half by accidentally smelting it inside of the furnace, but rather go ahead and just use the builder's workbench to cycle between these blocks instead. In a very similar fashion, we can still use the golden brick blocks. And before we do that, I do want to highlight, once again, look at how these items down here are grayed out. These cannot be used inside of this workbench. This is a common feature for every single workbench that you manually put items inside of. If you can use it, it's going to be highlighted like so. If you can't use it, it's going to be grayed out. So the gold brick block, we can choose any of the stairs, the slabs, etc. inside of the builder's workbench, or we can even choose between the different versions of the gold block, similar to how we were just doing with the quartzite cobbled and the original quartzite block itself. Now let's move on on to some of the other blocks that I was kind of unaware of in terms of their functionality inside of the Builder's Workbench, and once again, I just stumbled across these as I was just playing the game. So the first one up is going to be the plant fiber. So if you guys want any sort of rope inside of your game and you want to make a cool looking wreck ship inside of your world, then this is going to be very useful. You have a vertical option, you also have a diagonal option of the rope itself, and then on top of that, the blue crystal shards or any of the other crystal shard variants, they can be used to make the block or other crystal shard variants as well. Now, I'm just going to test this out for you guys really quick. So if we craft a whole block, it's going to take a total of 10 crystal shards. Like we just started off with 100 and now we only have 90. So that's how you make any sort of the crystal shard blocks inside of your game. I think, yes, they do have a nice glow to them. So this is going to be extremely brilliant if you want to play a trick on your friend and hide it underneath like the blocks I have here and just kind of trick them with like the lighting. You're like, whoa, how does this have such a cool blue or red or orange, whatever you guys decide to choose. If you guys do decide to play a prank on your friend like that with like the lighting, let me know in the comment section down below. That'd be really funny. Anyways, once we break it, we get the crystal shards back and we only got 5 of them. So just be aware if you are making a lot of these blocks or trying to rely on making these blocks, unfortunately, you got to be a little bit precise while using these because you're only going to get half the material back that you put into making the block in the first place. Now the white cloth or any of the other cloth variants, this is going to be used to make any sort of the cloth roof flaps or the horizontal version, diagonal or sloped, as well as the vertical version. So if we just make one of these bad boys right here, and then we just stick it, where can I put this? How does this thing function? There we go. So yeah, you can just put this inside of your world any way that you want to. I'm not really too sure why some of these items seem so hard to use inside of your world. Maybe they'll fix that feature here in a little bit, but yeah, as of right now, that's kind of a cool, unique way, I guess you could place the cloth back. I don't know. If you guys are trying to get any sort of cloth and you're trying to make the roof flaps, well, this is how you do it. And next up is going to be the iron ingots. This is really cool. And I do want to just point out and say, none of the other ingots have this ability as well. I've tested it and it doesn't work for any other ones. But if we take iron ingots, we put them inside of here, we can get the horizontal bars or the vertical bars, as well as some small chains. And if you guys have noticed, there are thicker chains that are at some of the other structures. And I've always wondered, how do I make this? Well, now I know how to make it. That's pretty awesome. You can also make a stack of iron bars, which is pretty cool. If you do make one, it only costs 1 iron ingot. And I think these look pretty cool inside of your build. If you're trying to make a mine shaft or a ore room and you're trying to decorate it out a little bit, and you guys can also break this down, it's not going to cost you anything. So break it down, do whatever you want with this, and just have fun with the variants with the iron ingot bars. Now, if you want to be cool, just like me, yeah, I think I look pretty cool inside of my ice chair. Anyways, moving on. If you want to be just like me and have this little cool ice chair or any other throne inside of your game, well, let me show you exactly how you can get that. So if we take any sort of ice log and we put it inside of the Builder's Workbench, then we have access to all these frozen different variants. We have the frozen castle chair that I just showed you. You have the frozen castle platform. You guys can make some really cool looking windows as well as a wardrobe. You are able to decorate this however you choose to. So let me know, did you end up using any sort of the iced out materials to make a really cool icy castle with a dope icy throne? Oh, that just sounds really cool. Too bad I'm not like as skilled of a builder, so I'll leave that building up to you guys so that you guys can maybe show me in the future. And on top of being a skilled builder, I want to direct your guys' attention to this nice little tool. It is called the Builder's Hammer. Now there's various different forms of this. The last version is the iron one, and all this does is just increase the maximum durability. It doesn't change the function or what you can do with this. Anyways, while we were utilizing the Builder's Workbench, we saw here on the left side that we can cycle through various different blocks of the block that we actually input into the workbench itself. Now, if you don't want to do this, or let's say you have placed an entire section of wood like this, or maybe you guys have put an entire stone wall up and you're wondering what it would look like if it looked differently, all we have to do is go up to any sort of these blocks and right click or left click and you'll change the look of the block. This is going to cycle through in the exact same fashion as the workbench itself. So if we hit this a couple more times, then we'll be back at the original block that it once was. This is going to be really cool, especially if you guys are trying to work on your shading for a build. So let's move over to like this back wall, and let's say that I want this to to have a more gradient look to it. You guys can play around with this and you guys can shade walls just like this however you want inside of your world. This is a really cool and unique trick to utilize if you're not wanting to break and replace blocks that you have already spent time working on. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we are on our final segment of the video. It's gonna have to do with the Salvager's Workbench, and I gotta say, I'm so sad that you guys are leaving me. But anyways, let me show you guys how this bad boy works. It's very simple. All over the world, you're gonna be collecting a whole lot of different weapons, or if you guys are using any of your sort of weapons or armor and you guys just want to go ahead and hold on to it so you can recycle it later, then this is the way to do it. So just go ahead and grab anything that you want to recycle. It could be any sort of armor, it could be any sort of weapon, it could be a bow, it could even be a shield if you have one, and then go ahead and go inside of the Salvager's Workbench and just place it inside of here. Now the great thing is that whatever you put in the input section, the output will be consistent with the materials that is used to make that item. So just to give you another example, let's say we use this iron hatchet. So the output, we're going to be expecting to get some sort of iron, maybe a stick. Oh, instead, so we got the iron ore, we got the light hide that was used to make it, as well as the linen scraps. Now, this is just a great way to recycle all the items that you have gathered throughout the entire game. As you can see over here on the left, I already have the adamantite armor, so I don't really need any of this other armor. So it's a great way just to build up some numbers of the ore that I have, or even like the hide if I'm running low on some. And I would just highly recommend that you guys do this inside of your game. Now, there's one final tip that I have to give you about the Salvager's Workbench and when to kind of use it as you get towards the later end of the game. So as we can see in my inventory, I have this thing called a repair kit. If you're unaware of what a repair kit does, it's going to repair any tools, armor, or weapons that you have inside of your inventory that are damaged. However, there is a huge caveat to this. Any repaired items are going to lose up to 10% of their maximum durability. So what this looks like is if we use this thorium hoe, for example, right here inside of the description of the thorium hoe, we can see that we have 400 uses of the actual hoe itself. So if we want to use the repair kit on it, all we have to do is just right click. It's going to bring up an entire list of all the items that can be repaired. We just got to scroll down. We find the thorium hoe, click on it, and now this thing is going to be at 100%. However, just like I just said about the caveat to using this, now our maximum durability is at 369. So just be aware of this if you guys are at the end stages of your game and you're trying to make sure that you're utilizing your armor and you're utilizing the repair kits, because the repair kits aren't that costly towards the end of the game. So it's well within your interest to repair stuff like the adamantite armor. A good example of when to recycle your adamantite tools is when you kind of get to where I'm at right here. So right now I have 171 uses left inside of my pickaxe, so I'm gonna go ahead and just break it back down so I can get the adamantite back out from it. And once again, this is just a really cool, useful tip that I use inside of my game just to recycle some of the ores that I use. You guys can utilize this however you want, recycle stuff as early as you want, use as many repair kits as you want. The great thing about this game is just because I say something that is really cool and a useful tip doesn't mean that you gotta use it. Play the game however you want to play it. No, I totally forgot. Okay, I totally forgot. This is the last tip. I promise. This is the last tip for the, yes, the Salvager's Workbench. Inside of this chest, I have a cobblestone wall as well as a cobblestone roof. Now I'm gonna go ahead and grab this brick wall as well because I want to show you guys this distinction here. So inside of the Salvager's Workbench, if you have stocked up on any sort of these buildings that you don't want anymore, then you can place them inside of the Salvager's Workbench and you're gonna break them back down into the rubble version of whatever that is. So right now I just have regular stone, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some stone rubble. However, one thing I do want to point out, this does not work on any brick versions of any sort of material. So if you're just trying to recycle any of the cobbled versions, so this is going to work on cobblestone, it's going to work on cobble version of marbled stone, any sort of cobbled version, you can go ahead and get the stone rubble version of that back out from the Salvager's Workbench. However, like I said, it's not going to work for the actual brick version of anything else. Oh, and I just realized you can actually put a repair kit inside of here if you really want to. However, I just don't suggest doing this. Why would you want to be getting rid of your repair kit if we're being completely honest? I know I just said I had one final tip, but I seriously have one last final tip. I am so sorry that I forgot this back when we were talking about the furnaces. This is something that's it's just a small little detail. It's a very small detail inside of the game. So let's just grab some of the charcoal and then let's go ahead and let's just smelt up one iron ore right here. Okay, so as we can see, the bar is progressing. Now I want you to listen closely to the noise it makes once it finishes. That little ding that the furnace made there towards the end is the audio cue that lets you know that the input is finally done. All the materials inside of the input have been fully smelted down, and I think this works for other workbenches such as the tanning rack, for example. Anything that's inside of the input, once it has completed, you're gonna hear that little ding, and that's how you know that you're finally ready to grab all your materials. In a very similar fashion, when we run out of a fuel source, so we're gonna let this burn, I'll let you guys listen. Now that noise right there lets you know that your fuel source is now become insufficient. You no longer have any more fuel inside of your furnace. So if you guys are just inside of your base and you're just walking around doing your own little thing and you hear either one of those two noises, well, now you know what they mean. Anyways, now that is the entire video. I thank you all so much for just being here, for putting up with all my mistakes. I'm so sorry. I should have planned this out so much better, but I hope you all learned something valuable here in this video. Once again, if you have, maybe consider liking, subscribing, sharing with a friend, and as always, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.